3520 or call us at +27 12 001 7679. Let your voice be heard. Adventist World Radio, powered by SID Media. From broadcast to baptism.
Oh yeah, and I hope that I do have you with me loud and clear on the line. Abuti Busani, good morning to you. Are you good this morning? You're still on mute. The last thing I want is to go live and then maybe he's not here with me, and I'm assuming that he is. All right, we're going to have an interesting conversation. We have titled it a mini discourse reflecting on some phenotypical ideologies of Bible characters, and together, myself being the facilitator of the conversation, of course, and Aubuti Busani Mlilo are going to be tackling this one. And so I was playing that song about colors, the blind man, and I think I'm going to play a few more towards the end of the conversation. Hopefully we will have time to do that, because it matters to some, maybe it doesn't matter to others, but either way, it's an important conversation if it matters to someone, right? Surely. Abuti Busani, please just remove your mic from mute so that we can hear you.
Hi, Millicent. Can you hear me?
I can hear you with the sound in the background. If you have headsets on, in case
Hello.
can you remove them? Yeah, I'm sure you can hear the sound quality is not giving. I'm assuming it probably has to do, I don't know, of course, but I'm not sure. But he might have some of this equipment on his head or in his ears, and it might then be affecting our clear connection. So hopefully that can be sorted out. Should I just hit the ground running and hope that Utlang join on the way? Abuti Mulilo, hopefully it sounds better. Can you say something maybe? Mm-hmm.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Much better now.
I'm
Much
around.
We're sharp, happy, excited. This particular conversation that we're about to have right now, and let's get into it because it's already 19 minutes after 8. Yeah, and this is not to be controversial. I have to say, I'm not carrying it with me. I want to take evidence for myself so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. When you go through some of our church books, like our lesson books, whether it is for the children or it's for the elderly people, because there are pictures in all of them, you will come across something interesting. Maybe you've not noticed this theme before, but I came across it recently and it clicked. No, man, I've seen this all my life, but I never thought anything of it. Yeah. And that's the Caucasian-looking Bible characters, whether it was the Sabbath school classes or the Pathfinder classes. And most recently, I just noticed it in the adult lesson book as well. We have been studying about Joshua, for instance, and it just dawned on me that all these people have the same texture hair, the same kind of looking skin. Of course, I can't see the eye color because it's kind of gray, but and I just thought, is this depiction that we are given here accurate or is it inaccurate? Akisho, Lilo, I hope you are here with me. Did you hear what I have said already so far?
Yes, I have, Millicent, and I believe this is a very important and interesting engagement. I want to maybe start by saying that I believe that we are all created in God's image.
Yeah.
And the gospel is to each and every person that is on this planet. And I believe that for us to truly worship God, we need to stand in a space where we see ourselves as part of those that God is seeking to redeem, as human beings. And I believe that it's important that no one feels that they are a second class citizen, as it were, when
Yeah.
it comes to the gospel. So it's important for those that have, maybe through historical events like maybe colonialism, slavery, it's important for them to stand in fullness before God, in fullness of human dignity, if I were to put it that way, so that
Okay.
I believe they can respond correctly to the gospel message. So what we are trying to discuss is very, very important, and it's very relevant today.
Yeah. And I know you are a pastor in training. I'm trying to show this. I know you are a pastor in training as well. So I'm curious, is this something that you guys talk about as one of your courses when you are studying theology?
Okay, so if we look at the history of the Christian church, or if we call it the history of the gospel,
Mm.
um, we have to understand that normally when we talk about the origins of people, we associate them with geographical areas more
Yes.
than the aspect of skin color. All right. Because
Mm.
skin color over a period of time, because of intermarriages and all these other aspects, they can be changes. But what we are trying to say is that we need to look at the I mean, Genesis chapter 10, the table of nations, becomes a starting point, because Noah, as we know, where there was a flood, and Noah and his three sons and their three wives, um,
Were dispersed.
they are given the command to replenish the earth, and
Yeah.
multiply and replenish the earth. And we do understand that from there, all that is in existence in terms of humanity and ethnicity and colors and everything comes
Mm.
from that moment. So, but I want to stress, as much as we do study, um, because the Bible is a book of many aspects. There is science, there is anthropology, there is history. There are different aspects to it. So yes, those things are studied, but I want to emphasize that we want to move from a premise of where do the people originally come from, from a geographical perspective. And then it becomes easy then to understand the whole narrative.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because when you go through your book, those of you, and it's not just in maybe, I'm assuming it's across the different Christian churches that when there's literature, you would probably also come across this very same thing where when you look at pictures, it's like, okay, I'm seeing Jesus there in the background, and as you can see, what does that look like to you? And
Mm-hmm.
in front of him
Mm-hmm.
is another character. Yes, he's got a helmet on, but when you look at other considerations that come with different looks when we associate the variations of different structures, features with certain colors. It tells a story. um let's start
Yeah.
with whether, and I love how you went into Noah and his family, because that's where we are introduced to different types of people in the world. These books that we read, maybe let's start with the original Bible characters themselves, regardless of modern day books that we use, in addition to the Bible. The Bible itself is a representative of a rainbow nation, would you say?
Definitely, it is. It's, in fact, I would like to say the Bible is the story of a family,
Oh, okay.
right
Yeah, yeah,
from the
yeah.
time of Adam. I think if we can maintain the concept or the perception that we are dealing with a family
Mm-hmm.
that is enlarged. That's very important, so that we don't find ourselves, creating no, rather falling into the racial pit. So
Okay.
I want us to understand that the story is the Bible is the story of a family, the
Yeah.
family of Adam, and then obviously then the family of Noah, and from there we can then see how that family grows and fills the earth.
Mm.
I also wanted to mention that obviously when it comes to how we depict things, whether in paintings or whether in films, um, the story of how, the way a story is told is normally told through the eyes of a person. It wouldn't make sense for me, if I'm the storyteller, to put up images of something that uh, I don't resonate with. Basically, that's what I'm
Mm.
trying to say.
Okay.
So if we were to put it in a, if we look at like what people say about how history is written, they will say history is written by the victors, and they will put a narrative which they want to come out there. So in the same way, we need to look at Christianity, but at that very juncture, we need to ask ourselves: um, Does Christianity really, or is it an European thing, or it's got African roots?
Mm.
Because I've heard people who say, no, this Bible is a book of colonizers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we really, yeah, but when we really look at it and we study, we find that right here in Africa, the story of the gospel story, we find it, and we don't only find it as just a mere rare incidents, but we find that as Africans, or in fact, I don't even want to use the word African, because
Okay.
the name Africa is even a name of a Roman, but
I didn't know
for the
that.
context, yeah, for our discussion, um, as the children of Ham, let me put it like that, as the children of Ham, we are much part of the gospel story. There is no exclusion. This thing did not come with other people.
Mm.
We are part of that story, and we need to actually realize that and embrace that. That is why I said in the beginning, we need to stand in the fullness of our being as Ham's children, so that we can truly, really, truly, truly receive, the gospel message.
You know what? The way you put it, saying that this, we are Ham's children, makes, I mean, immediately a person feels like, oh, I am a part of this. It's not so far fetched anymore, because Ham is a figure that is clearly identified in the Bible directly, from Noah's loins, and I think that makes a person feel like, oh, okay, this is not something that I need to reject. If I am a descendant of Ham, then surely I belong. I know you explained that Africa is the name of, I think you said Roman, so it's not necessarily truly from the continent of Africa itself. But I'm going to just use it for the sake of the context of the conversation. Who do we know
Yeah.
for a fact in the Bible was actually African? Like literally, they were born on this continent. Their family were from this continent. Are there people in the Bible who are that? Not just that they traveled to Africa on journeys, but were actually literally from Africa.
All right. The evidence is overwhelming.
Okay.
Um, if okay, so maybe let's touch on the children of Ham, the first line, right? So we've got Cush, we've got Put, we've got Nizram, we've got Canaan. Okay, so those are, I think, the first four that we can touch on. I think maybe for us to clarify this to whoever is listening or watching, we are not necessarily trying to talk about Africans and at the exclusions of others. But we are just trying to bring out an aspect to say that if we look at our literature, it seems to portray an exclusion, right? But we just want to try and make people understand that we are part of the story. I think that's important. So now, like I'm saying, if you look at the first children of Ham, those are the four that I've named. And we know that Cush talks to Ethiopia, Nizram talks to Egypt, and Put, I believe, talks to Libya. And then Canaan, of course, we know the Canaanites who were found in the land of modern day Israel. Okay, so there are many stories in the Bible that we find which talk to the involvement. I mean, for instance, let's talk about that God, even when Christ is born and they are seeking to kill him. He is, God exiles him in the land of Egypt. He takes him there on exile in the land of Egypt, and that's part of Africa already. And if we also look at the mention of the Ethiopian, let's look at the Ethiopian, the one that was going to worship in Jerusalem, and Philip meets him on the way, and he explains the gospel to him. There are many incidents like that. Let's talk about, there's, I don't know if I should mention this one. Let's talk about the disciples of Jesus.
Yes.
Let's talk about Simon the Canaanite.
Mm-hmm.
He is part of the disciples of Jesus. If you go on to the biography of Simon the Canaanite, it actually then explains. If you go to the Strong's Concordance, it will actually align that he was indeed a descendant of Ham, and is involved, is part of the 12 disciples as well. So I'm just trying to touch on a few incidents, but even there are longer stories that you find. For instance, there is a gentleman called what's his name? Is it Abishmelech? I can't remember it now. But it is the story of Jeremiah, where Jeremiah is put in prison, and this man who stands before the king actually then speaks to the king so that Jeremiah is actually rescued. And that man is an Ethiopian, is a Cushite. And actually God then responds. This is before the destruction of Jerusalem. And then God actually responds to him directly, and he says, because you have done this act, I'm going to spare your life from the destruction that is coming. So yes, there are many stories where we are part of that story.
Oh, very interesting. Abimelech or something like that. I might not get the pronunciation right. And when you spoke about Jesus, I don't remember this properly, but the time of Jesus's childhood in Egypt when they were fleeing from King Herod, do we know how long they might have stayed in Egypt for? And I don't think that was the only time he was there, was it?
If from record, I'm not really sure of any other time, but I believe that was the longest time that Yeshua, Messiah, was in Egypt.
And the reason
and I think it was over 2 years when he was in there.
It was over 2 years.
Yes.
So possibly he might have siblings who were born there, possibly, but we might not know for sure.
Yes. It's possible, but I think the other aspect of it is that obviously, if he was in there, he couldn't have been very, very different, in appearance. He would blend in with the peoples of the time, and it wouldn't be something that would be, cause. I mean, would be conspicuous. It wouldn't cause or draw attention. So it means he would blend in. So even when we look at whether we want to talk about appearance and all those things, it gives us an idea, to say, okay, because obviously if you are an African in Europe, and I mean, there are countries where you rarely find Africans in Europe, or I wouldn't want to say black, but you would probably stand out. You understand what I'm saying? So in this context, we can have an idea that he would, he blended in, he fitted, he wasn't out of place when he was there. Hello, Millicent.
Sorry, I removed myself for a moment there. It would be difficult
Hello,
for him. I'm back. Can you hear me, Abuti Busani?
I can hear you now. Yes, I can
Okay,
hear you.
sorry about that. I was just saying that, yeah, surely it would be easy then to single him out and he would be easily caught um, and
Yeah,
found if he didn't blend in. So I think that's a really powerful point. I've never ever thought about it like that before. Very beautiful insights coming through. And if you've got yours as well that you would love to share, our WhatsApp number is +27734703520. Yeah, we talk about the color of Bible characters. It matters to some people. It might not matter to you. Maybe you're one of those people who you're at a point in your life and in your walk with God where some of these things are neither here nor there. And maybe when you have conversations with people, you can even say that this is not a salvational issue. I think for people who are not where you are at, it becomes a salvational issue if then this becomes the reason for them rejecting Christianity in totality because they
definitely.
feel deprived and unwanted and rejected by God. God is seen as a tyrant. God is seen as someone who has allowed for generations of abuse and has cursed the African people. Those are a lot of the beliefs that are out there. And I think we are trying to then be part and parcel of doing the work of giving the correct narrative of the story. As Obudi Pastor Mlilo has said, that the story is told from the narrative of the storyteller, from the position of the storyteller. And if we don't rise up and share the understanding, the position that we also have, that came down through oral tradition, by the way, over thousands of years, then we're going to have only one narrative that suits a particular group of people that is shared. And remember, not that I'm saying that they are lying, but with a lie, for example, you hear it over and over and over again, you start to believe it, it becomes the truth, even if it is not necessarily the truth. Um, and you spoke about this point already, Abu Dimlilo, which is I think something that I was also referring to about the assumption about features, yeah, and how they differ depending on where you were born. Um, so this one is going to hit home. But the Bible characters as depicted, and I'm going to speak about Adventist books, but I don't think I'm wrong. I've been to many big bookshops. I love books. I love books. And I've been to many bookshops and I've looked through books. And when they are Christian books, they reveal an illustration that I want to know whether it is an honest one. Is it as accurate as possible to the real people who once lived, the true characters who we read about? You've seen pictures as well when you buy coloring books for your children, when you buy Bible story books for your children, and your kids go through them. Maybe at that young age, your kids might not ask you these questions because, like when I was that age, I never thought about these things. It didn't matter. Jesus has long hair that's probably, I don't know, gold in color or whatever. It's not something that you're like, this is different. But for some people, there are children who are curious like that. What Abu Timlilo, the illustrations that are there, and should they matter? Or do you find that some people, maybe like someone like me, making a big deal out of nothing?
Mm. Yeah, this is not an easy space, but let's try and address it. I mean, look, let's go to the Ten Commandments. It says, "I shall not have any graven image
Mm,
or any likeness of anything that is on heaven." There is something around images
mm,
which is very powerful,
mm,
which God, even in His own wisdom, when it comes to us worshiping Him. He wants us to approach the issue of image generation in a very important. How can I put it? In we must approach it wisely. You know,
yeah,
if you look at the history of this Christian narrative, I think especially when the Reformation kicks in, I mean,
mm,
guys like Michelangelo, they've actually really reshaped how we perceive the image of Christ.
mm,
The blonde hair and blue eyes,
mm,
a depiction that we find ourselves having even up to today. And I won't
yeah,
even mention the impact of the Hollywood movies. You know, so the what I would call it, it runs deep. You know, it's really deep, and people are kind of like stuck with that image. But I also want to say, um, anyone has a right to create the image that resonates with them. Okay,
okay,
before the
okay,
issue, before we can deal with the aspects of what is true and what is not. You know,
oh,
because one thing about I want to say one thing about worshiping God is that it is a
mm,
personal experience. Honestly, um, it's a personal experience. It's a personal relationship. But of course, outside that, there are pillars of truth, or there are aspects of truth which must be maintained. So if we look at really, if we were to talk about Jesus or Yeshua, how he would have looked like,
yeah,
we understand that he's coming out from Abraham's line, which is a descendant of Abraham. These are Semitic people. Obviously, he was more darker in his skin tone,
oh, you talk about
and
Abraham now.
no, I'm talking about Christ. He
Oh,
was darker
okay.
in his skin tone. He didn't have blue eyes.
You're saying he was dark because
And
he was a Semite.
yeah, he was darker. Yes, definitely, he was darker in his skin tone. He wasn't having an European skin tone. All right. So that is true. We don't really have to really argue that. But having said that, to be honest with you, Millicent, there are conversations now that are happening outside right now, which can really change the whole narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to fear to say this. Let me say it, and people can go and look it up, and people can go and study. Because, for instance, if you look at, I spoke about Canaan, who is a
Yes,
descendant of Ham. We find
yes.
him occupying that area of the Middle East. He is
Mm,
found there. He's a descendant of Ham. He is falling within the first four children of Ham. Uh, and there's a narrative that is happening where people are saying, no, look, even if we look at the original Israelites, they are not the ones that we see now occupying the land. I mean, we know this, the narrative of they call it the Kazakhstan Jews, those who
mm,
are coming from Eastern Europe that came into Israel. They came into the Jewish fraternity of faith by conversion, and may not be necessarily the original Jews. So there are narratives that are happening, which are
mm,
even pointing out or pointing us to a direction whereby they are people who are coming out boldly to say, no, even the original Jews were actually the descendants of Ham. You understand? So, but like I'm saying, I don't want us to 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 really, but let's put these things out there with an idea of steering something or invoking something in the minds of people, so that they can go and study for themselves and understand this. So
Yeah,
yes, what we find in the books now is not a true reflection of what was actually.
sure,
So,
sure.
but also, but I also want to blame, even, we've got this reactive posture to many things.
Mm,
Why are we not initiating? We always react and say, no, but this thing is like this, it shouldn't be like this. But what are we doing, to correct that narrative? I even want to touch a bit even on the church fathers. Are you aware that the church fathers, if you talk of Augustine, these are the guys that set the foundation, of Christian. Most of the seminaries were in Carthage. The
mm,
scholars of the theological, if I were to say seminaries of the time, the leading minds and scholars were in Africa, in Carthage. We've got the
mm.
guys who are like Augustine, who have been betrayed, uh, 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 who have been portrayed as European when actually they were Africans. So there's a lot there as well which we need to look at and study and understand, because like you were saying, it's very important to understand this so that people don't reject Christianity and say this is a colonizer's tool.
Mm.
It came with colonizers, so we cannot accept Christianity, when in actual fact it
Hey.
is an African story.
Mm, mm. Yeah, this is very hectic. This is probably one of the most difficult conversations that I have actually had. What's your take? What's your understanding? What questions do you have that are still to be answered? Perhaps WhatsApp number is +2773 470 3520. It's a conversation that even if you go on mainstream media, you will see with people who um talk on these interview podcasts where they'll be, maybe they'll have as a guest a particular pastor, and you'll see that there is a serious disconnect between the person asking questions, who comes from a different culture, to the one who might be answering. The belief system is really entrenched. It's really entrenched, um and it's hard to unsee what you have already seen. And it makes me wonder, because one of your responses about how you can represent them the way you would like to, because it's your understanding, but there still is an importance of remaining truthful and authentic in that. Mm, are we then going to say that there's no blasphemy in believing that Jesus was maybe either purely black, or was either, I mean, you already said he wasn't white, but if you start researching, you'll probably come across something that says he was olive skin. And then you're like, okay, what is olive skin? I've never met a person of color who describes themselves as having olive skin. I've heard different shades of brown. Um, but when I hear olive skin, I've always I've always related that to Caucasian. And then people will quote different verses about maybe his hair, white wool. Um, and then maybe batla dirisa gore wool e ka re ish, I don't mean to be rude, because if I was talking about myself, I would be comfortable saying skirtrada. What wool? It's coarse, yeah, it's coarse. Um, and talk about the feet being brass. And now some of these verses, I don't know if they're not prophetic depictions. And with prophecy, I agree. Now we have to question, yeah, must this be taken literally, figuratively? What is it symbolic of? Yeah, so those are the contentious issues that I have in my little mind. But are you saying, I mean, how would you wrap it up? I really don't know.
Look, the way I would wrap it up, I think I emphasized the point of an inclusive story,
Yeah.
where we don't create inferiority complexes and superiority complexes. We want to get the gospel in its truest form, which so that it will achieve its intended purpose. So those who have an inferiority complex, they need to be assisted so that they stand in the right position to accept the gospel, not as a tool of colonialism or slavery, but
Yeah.
really as a tool of salvation. You
Mm.
understand? So,
Yeah.
and yes, we must be truthful in our representation of things, whether they be images or that which is written. I didn't want to. Maybe let me touch on this.
Okay.
There are other studies from a scientific perspective where they talk
Mm-hmm.
about what do they call it? Is it genetic mapping or yeah, something like that? It's the scientific term,
Mm-hmm.
which seems to suggest that as you retrace your steps further back, you get people that are more darker skinned. All
Oh
right.
wow. Mm-hmm.
Uh, because if we talk about the Caucasian aspect, why are they named Caucasian? It comes from the issue of the Caucasian mountains. These are the people who crossed the Caucasian mountains. They went on to the other side. But remember, the point of displacement is there in Aratat. What do we call it? The way the boat landed in Turkey there. And there they are given the command to disperse and fill the earth. So some go northwards, some go southwards, some go eastwards in terms of those families. But they are all coming from one space, from one area. So
Mm.
one might then ask and say, okay, so if we look at the family of Noah, does it mean that these people had actually different physical features?
Mm-hmm.
So there must be a point of origin of everything, where everything comes from, and then it can then diversify into whatever it diversifies into. I don't know if you are following my logic, and I'm saying based on genetic mapping,
Mm.
um, the idea seems to suggest that the earlier groups were darker when it
Okay.
comes to the skin tone. And then we then have the variations as we move forward, where like we have now the lighter skinned and all that stuff. So, but
Mm.
having all that, I think the essence of our discussion is that let us understand that everyone is included in the gospel story. And there's no one who must take a position of superiority when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the gospel story. And let me address what I said in terms of us representing things according to how they resonate with us or according to our immediate environment. I want to be very pragmatic about this.
Mm.
We run, like, for instance, I'm talking about now the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We run like our vocational Bible school, you know, and
Yes.
if you have seen over the years, there's this thing which I find I don't think it's okay. Where we
Oh.
get themes from America, we have to get themes from America. They are talking about the cactus, cactus plants, cactus desert. How is that relevant to a child that is here in South Africa where
Mm-hmm.
there is no desert? You understand? So, in representing the gospel themes, we need to also take
I hear you.
cognizance of the local aspect so that it resonates with those people. Because if I'm teaching children about a cactus theme taken from, I don't know, Texas, whatever, you understand my drift.
I
So
do.
there
I
has
do.
to be relevance. There has to be relevance. Even in the imagery, there has to be relevance.
Wait,
And
I hear you.
people must be able to resonate with what they
Mm.
are interacting with.
Yeah. No, I hear you, but I also feel that way. I'm not gonna lie. I feel that way about the Bible itself. There's a lot of even the parables that I don't understand. Well, I'm older now, ne? But growing up, I don't understand even the imagery that was used because they used a lot of, for example, farming. Yeah, and if you grew up in the city where, I mean, you never think you will ever need anything to do with farming, which, like, I see you from a township, the imagery is far-fetched. Even within the Bible, people have to become extra creative to bring it to life and make you understand when they speak about harness bells. What are harness bells? Because this child has never um when they talk about wineskins, like, what's that? You understand? Like, it's so I hear you about the West, but I'm just saying, even the Bible itself, anyone who's going to stand in front of anyone being a teacher of sorts needs to be more creative than just assuming that just because when you understand this word, you looked at the dictionary. Other people don't have that same experience. You have to have pictures. We have to have maps. Show people the regional areas where events were taking place. Yes, you can use the old names that were there. If you're gonna say, for example, Mesopotamia, okay, Mara, break it down so that people really understand. No, yana gore o bua ka eng. What is Mesopotamia in 2025? That region's name is not called Mesopotamia. What is it called now? Otherwise, you talk about Paul's stories and the journeys. That's why we are in this, confusion and rejection, because the names, what's Phoenicia? Like, what is that? It doesn't make sense to us. We don't resonate with that. Make it come out alive. Tell us in modern times, this is where this place is. Or bonse di map tsa teng. Show us pictures. If you're going, we're having this conversation. How do you prove, okay, what you are saying is now true? Take us through the story. Oh, guys, I mean, let's look at Sudan. This is what the people in Sudan look like. Can you see Ethiopia? This is what the people in Ethiopia look like. Okay, if we say Mang Mang was born there, what do you think this person, like, make it come alive? But it's boring. Like, it's boring. Like, the way people it's just a duty in church that you take, and you do it for the sake that, I guess, you're a church member and you must be in good and regular standing and you must have a duty to do. Yeah, Bora. The kids will, yes, they'll know the stories mentally, but it does not change you. It does not make you seek for more knowledge of the word of God. It does not make you feel like God is a fair God because there's too much information that is, unfortunately, it's missing. And I think all of us need to do better. All of us need to do better in that regard. I don't think the old school way of always doing things is good enough. Even for families, if you are fortunate to be in a family that worships, make sure that you bring these things alive to your kids, and not just to your kids. My goodness, you could be just a husband and wife together in the house. Bring it alive to each other. You're going to talk about the scepter. What is a scepter? What does a scepter look like? It's guys, no.
Yeah, definitely. That's beautiful. But look, we haven't even scratched the surface with this engagement. There is actually a lot more where we can actually zone in on specifics. Yeah, but I think the message is that we need to study for ourselves and go beyond the obvious. Let's not accept the narratives that have been there, but let's go beyond that and study. You know, and for those, like I said, for me this is important. For those that have this mindset of being, we talk of inferiority complex. We need to change that. We are part of the story.
There's a lot of psychological damage for sure. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Ish, to be done dirty, God. All right. We will talk then about what are the other narratives that are important in this conversation. It's a story. The Bible is a very beautiful story, but it's easy to just throw the baby out of the bathwater when the connections are not clear, they are not honest, they are not well explained. And I think it is our responsibility as Bible students to help each other, and especially if you're going to be any evangelist that is authentic and really useful in this world, you're going to have to go the extra mile. And I think you have done that very nicely for us this morning, Pastor Wusani Mlilo. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time to prepare for this lesson. And I look forward to further conversations. Yes, we are in the festive season, wishing you that you also have a beautiful week ahead. And everyone else, I shall wish you Kausani. But to you, Pastor Mlilo, thank you very much for this morning and have a beautiful week, yeah, with your family.
Same to you. Thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Amen. Amen.
Adventist World Radio SID Media. We are not general practitioners. We are specialists in Bible-based content.
Simba Mazani, before we wrap it up, thank you so much. I see that you've sent through a message saying that you think that there is a balance that needs to be struck and we must make an effort to understand history and different cultural norms that will help to contextualize correctly. I appreciate your comment. Well, this is to be continued. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning. But from me, Millicent Ndiweni, thank you so much for joining into the breakfast show today. Have a beautiful day further. Let's continue this on the other side.
Oh, the colors of the